It's my pleasure to welcome Neal Watson to the DanCast today. And can you tell me a little bit about yourself and background, Neal?
Sure. My name's Neal Watson. I was born in the Bahamas. My dad had a dive shop there when I was a kid, and I've just grown up in the industry. We work on a lot of film productions from BBC, Discovery, National Geographic. We have 12 different boats in 3 different locations across the Bahamas. So we stay super busy, and we are really focused on a lot of like shark stuff. So we are kind of pushing some of the boundaries. So it's always great to have a backup and know that Dan's around to help with anything that could go wrong.
Well, that's wonderful. And I know as you were coming in, you talked a little bit about an incident where a crew member or someone you were on set with had an incident involving a shark where they did call Dan. So if you could tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure, yeah. It's a occupational hazard when you're hand feeding sharks. You have a tendency, you can get bit. And we did have a crew member, one of the feeders, get bit one time, and Dan really stepped up and was there to facilitate, that guy being able to play piano again. He's all good, and Dan really stepped up and took care of helping us out.
That's wonderful. And
Yeah.
was he, do you know if he was evacuated, or was it more of just the hotline and advice that he benefited from?
No, he did end up having to go to another island and get surgery on his hand. It wasn't a life-threatening incident, so it wasn't the same day, but it was the next day, and Dan really helped out.
Well, that's great. Dan was able to be there and, help him get the support he needed and
Yeah.
medical care.
For sure.
And so I'm interested to hear a little bit more about your work. Are there any productions you've worked on that really stand out as favorites or any highlights of your career?
Sure. I have a ton of them, but honestly, my favorite one was probably Blue Planet Live. So we did, I don't know if you know, but they did a Blue Planet Live, and it's pretty cool that it aired primetime in the UK. And it's one of the few live shows I've done, and it was over the course of a week, and we had 3 different live segments. And so it's like the middle of the day for us when it's airing prime time in London. And yeah, it was just the pressure was so cool because it was like a live massive show. All the cameras were tethered, so we had to have guys operating just to help hold the all the data cables that were connected to the cameras underwater. We had to set up like a satellite relay on top of the boat that then went to land, that then went up to a satellite, and then shot this underwater footage right to people's television in the UK prime time. And for me, that was my favorite. It was a ton of prep work, and it was really hard. But I also loved the finality of it. Like when it was done, it was done. Like there was no re-editing, it was up to us to cue a hammerhead to swim by as a guy in an OTS mask is talking about it on a live camera, and I really enjoyed that.
That sounds intense, balancing like the unpredictability of the underwater world and diving with a live show.
Yeah,
Very
I
cool.
mean, it's like all the things that they tell you not to do, but it was really cool. All of our segments came out great. And it was really, really awesome.
And thinking about prep work, kind of the safety side of things, I know one thing, Dan, a large focus is EAPs and making sure you have that action plan in place in case of an emergency.
Sure.
It does happen. Curious about what kind of planning goes behind the scenes of things like that.
Yeah, I mean, every safety plan and every action plan that we do for every production has Dan in it, which is pretty cool. Like your guys' numbers on there, it's always one of the first calls after, the Defense Force or the Coast Guard or wherever we're setting it up. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a show that doesn't have Dan involved. And even to credit you guys and what you do, all of the BBC shoots that we do now require that all of the people that we put in the water have Dan, which is kind of cool.
Well, that is great.
That you're even recognized on the other side of the globe there.
It's definitely a testament to, the dive community and the experts at Dan who, care to make sure that level of care and expertise is there for divers.
For sure.
And it sounds kind of like you have a dream job. So just for someone who was a new diver or interested in a career path like yours, just advice for them or, pathways where they might have the opportunities to work in places you have.
Right. As far as production goes, if you want to do production work, I think that, your best bet is to intern in a good place and really just keep a camera in your hand, man. And that's it takes a while to get there, but eventually you get there. I don't think it really is a shortcut. Mm-hmm. And as far as a career in the dive industry in general, I mean, it just shines through. If you enjoy it that much, just keep doing it and you'll figure out a great way to make a good living at it. But you really do have to enjoy it, because the first decade is, there's usually not that much money involved in it, but at that point you're usually young and having fun anyway. So there is a lot of fun in it. But the money usually comes later if you just stick with something that you enjoy doing.
And for you, did production start, above the water or underwater? Did you kind of, start? It sounds like you had a love of diving from an early age.
Yeah. I was doing a lot of diving before I did a lot of production work. But again, I mean, I think that what sets us apart and why we get the call a lot is because of our professionalism and safety standards, and I think that that's something that you just can't fake. And it's a old saying, but the cream rises to the crop, and if you're willing to put the work in, and believe it or not, it's saying no to producers that want to do things that are risky, and sometimes that's hard, but or just reworking productions so that the angles look more dangerous than they are from a camera's perspective. And I think that if you get creative with stuff like that, you can really keep a proper level of safety and still get people what they want with the final product.
And I know you've talked a bit about your experiences with animals on sets and its interplay with safety, but are there any animal encounters you've had, whether there was a camera involved or not, that just really have stood out to you as great memories?
As in just like a beautiful, lovely scenario, or as something that was surprisingly dangerous when it shouldn't have been, or
wherever you want to take it?
Yeah, man, there's a ton of really, really cool ones. We did the Shack show on Shark Week, and one of the props was this giant cage. So he is a giant, man, and I think of I often relate meeting Shaquille O'Neal to having children. Like, I thought Shaquille O'Neal was going to be the biggest man I'd ever seen, but he was still way bigger than I had expected. And I knew having kids was going to be like the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it's still way harder than I thought. And so anyway, this guy's huge, right? So a cage was designed for him, like almost comically large cage to do these dives in. But whoever designed it and built it, it kind of just took a regular shark cage in AutoCAD and stretched it. And so the holes were pretty big, and we had a shark go in the cage.
Oh, gosh.
So Shaq's in the cage. He's like this famous guy. You're not allowed to get him bit. And all of a sudden, there's a shark ping-ponging around inside the cage with Shaq. And he was obviously quite frightened and tried to get out of the cage very quickly. And I reached down with another guy to try and pull him out of the cage, but the guy's got to be 400 pounds. I mean, he's huge. We couldn't pull him out. Your boy Andy Casagrande was on that one. We ended up having to go in the cage and shove the shark out of the cage. And I remember just, when someone has silver dollar eyes from panic, but he's already so big, so his eyes were like plates. They were like dinner plates. He was panicked. And that was a pretty funny incident, and obviously no one was hurt or anything like that. But
I was going to say my money would probably be on Shaq in that situation.
Yeah, he weighed 8 times as much as the shark, but it was he was still very afraid. And I've heard him talk about that on some late night shows before that incident. So it was always pretty funny to have seen that firsthand. That was a pretty good one. And then, yeah, there's some magical moments I remember that involved like shows and celebrities. Like we had Michael Phelps on a hammerhead dive, and it was, you know, earlier, it's probably almost 10 years ago now, but I do remember like, you know, kind of being out of frame in the shot, like trying to guide the hammerhead in front of him to get the shot. And to do that and be out of the camera, I was like laying down on the ground. And I just remember looking up at Michael Phelps standing underwater, like in this pose like that, looking very, very heroic. And it was like the end of the day and the sun was setting. And my favorite big hammerhead, who was named Amphitrite, was like swimming by him. And I was just like, man, I felt accomplished, you know. And we got the shot. There's Michael Phelps looking like a superhero underwater. And the sun, you know, the light was right. And I'll just always kind of remember that moment too, for sure.
So cool. It sounds like you really do have a dream job for a lot of divers, I'm sure.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
And is there anything, I know Shark Week is quite a ways away, but is there anything, you know, you're working on now or on the horizon that you'd like to
It's
promote?
all been shot. We did, I don't know if, I think I'm not allowed to tell about these shows, but they all air in July, but I do have to sign like a bunch of NDAs. But we did some funny shows this year, some cool shows. Some, I guess I could say this, they did some contestant shows this year, kind of like where people get like points and they'll like win a competition, you know, where some people get like X out, like a Survivor kind of vibe that I think will air pretty well. Those are, yeah, we did some fun shows this year for sure. And some regular science ones and yeah.
Well, for anyone who's interested in, you know, seeing more of your work or following you, do you have channels of your own where people could find you?
I don't. I'm more of a behind the camera kind of guy. But the website's biminiscubacenter.com. We do, you know, hammerhead trips every day. We have a satellite location in Grand Bahama where we do day trips to Tiger Beach. So yeah, we do a ton of really cool dives. We are sinking a brand new wreck. I'm super excited about that. The fuel barge that has been delivering fuel from Nassau to Bimini for 40 years now. They gave it to us for $1. We just had to buy it in case we messed something up. But we are currently, we've gutted the boat. All the diesel and oil is out of it. We're torching holes all over it to make it an awesome dive site. And we hope to sink it in the next 2 weeks or so. So I'm kind of super stoked about that. I can't wait to have a brand new big wreck in Bimini.
I'm sure that the hammerheads will probably love it too.
Yeah. Well, we sank a wreck 2 years ago, the old mailboat, right on the like near the hammerhead spot. So we do hammerhead dives there, and we're gonna sink this one a little bit further away.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Neal. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today on the DanCast.
Oh, it was really, really my pleasure. Thank you guys very much for everything you do and for supporting us and for, you know, keeping everybody safe.
Thank you.